The rich millionaire farmer mocks an old man, but what happens to his horse will shock you. Chapter 1. The Mysterious Beginning. The sun beat down on Willow Creek, casting long shadows across the sprawling estate of James Thornton, the wealthy rancher known for his arrogance as much as his fortune. Laughter echoed like a taunt, thick with disdain, as James stepped onto his marble porch, spotting Harold at the edge of his rickety cabin. Hands burrowed deep in his modest garden. "Look at him!" he jeered, his voice dripping with ridicule. "He thinks those wilted plants will save him." But as laughter erupted from his gathered friends, a shiver ran down the spine of the grassland. Something felt wrong. Distant thunder rumbled, but the sky remained blue and clear. Harold straightened up, chucking dirt from his hands, his old eyes clouded but resolute, unbothered by the mockery. He was a fixture in these parts, a man rooted in simple truths, quite the opposite of the flashy Thornton lifestyle. Then, like a bolt from the blue, James's prized stallion, Thunder, began to whinny and rear violently in his paddock, muscles quaking as if sensing the very weight of the world. The laughter stopped, replaced by a hushed confusion. "It's just a horse," James spat, but panic prickled at the back of his mind. Thunder was famed for his grace, a symbol of James's wealth, and this was no ordinary display. The magnificent animal seemed to sense something ominous, eyes wide, nostrils flaring as he kicked at the air, thrashing against his leads. Days passed, each more charged with unease than the last. Thunder was caught in a spiraling frenzy, losing weight and strength, while the wind began to change. Murmurs swept through Little Creek like fire, as rumors of curses and secrets buried beneath the soil emerged. It was here that James stumbled upon old, worn-out photographs in the attic, disturbing glimpses of a past he had long sought to forget. Among these relics, Harold's face appeared more than once, binding their histories together in a way that made his chest tighten and his mind race. With time, as the earth trembled beneath the hoofbeats of a restless horse, a storm gathered on the horizon. Dark clouds churned ominously, mirroring James's tumultuous thoughts. What ties lay lost in the shadows? What legacy was he inheriting beyond his bank balance? As the wind howled and raindrops began to plummet, he knew this was not merely nature's fury. This was a reckoning. Would he drown in the heavy waters of his ignorance and pride? Or would he reach out, turn back towards the aging man he had so quickly judged? What lay beneath the surface of disdain he had cast on Harold, hidden amongst his sprawling estate of wealth and secrets? With each crack of thunder, clarity crept forward. A choice loomed large, and just as the first blinding flash unhinged the sky, James stood at the threshold between his shallow existence and the depths of a past he once considered irrelevant. His heart racing in tandem with his racing soul. Would he finally answer the call of his own buried truths? The storm held its breath, and so did he. The air grew heavy, charged with a tension that sent tendrils of unease racing through James's chest. Each clap of thunder felt like a heartbeat, a warning that something had to change. His gaze darted from the sky to Thunder, who was now thrashing with wild desperation, as if trying to escape the unseen menace. Suddenly, a tremendous bolt of lightning split the air, illuminating the darkened woods that bordered the estate. James's heart thundered in sync. He stepped closer to the edge of the porch, feeling the raw energy swirl around him, sending shivers through his body. The friends he had once mocked for watching were now frozen. Their laughter turned to pale faces, eyes wide in disbelief. Just then, Harold emerged from his garden, moving with purpose. The wind whipped his tattered clothes against his frail figure. "James!" he shouted, voice hoarse but filled with urgency. "You need to listen!" James shook his head, dismissing the old man once again. But the look on Harold's face stopped him cold. There was something in his eyes. Fear? Pain? No, it was desperation, mingled with an unsettling knowledge. "Your horse is trying to warn you," Harold called, as if words alone could break the barrier forming between them, the chasm of wealth and disdain that had divided them for so long. "He feels it, the curse." But before Harold could finish, a deafening crack shook the ground. A tree, old and gnarled, split in two, crashing down mere feet away from the porch. The thunder of wood hitting earth echoed in their ears, sending everyone fleeing backwards in a panic. "What is happening?" someone cried, voices rising with terror. James felt the ground shift beneath him. His heart raced, pulse thundering louder than the storm. He swallowed hard, feeling a tightening in his throat. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. All around him, his friends were shouting, scrabbling for safety, but he remained rooted to the spot, caught in the whirlwind of fear. Then, in a moment that felt surreal, the storm seemed to swell with life. The clouds rolled deeper, a swirling mass that looked like an ancient beast, poised to strike. And then it happened. A sudden flash of red light erupted from the sky. Striking thunder directly, the stallion reared back with a sound that made the hairs on James's neck stand on end. He gasped, but it wasn't just thunder. No, the glow shifted, and for a moment, James could see a shape hovering in the air, a figure he recognized. The cloud parted just enough to reveal a face he thought he'd buried long ago. His mother. Not just a memory, but there, suspended between life and death, eyes burned with a fiery emotion. "I lost you," James whispered, heart tearing, mind racing. Thunder bucked violently, and the image of his mother seemed to shift, the glow flickering like a candle in the wind. There, in the maelstrom, James felt something crack inside him. Memories flooded back, harsh words, arguments, love lost. His chest tightened painfully, and all at once he understood. This was no ordinary storm. With each strike of thunder, each flash of lightning, pieces of a buried past resurfaced, demanding to be faced. James's heart raced with a mix of fear and grief as he pulled in a sharp breath. The very things he had pushed away threatened to return, chaotic and urgent. Then came a voice, low and soft, winding through the chaos, filled with sorrow. "You were never meant to forget." Suddenly, the red light exploded outward, engulfing the entire estate in a blinding brilliance. James shielded his eyes, and when he opened them again, what lay before him was a vision that shattered everything he thought he understood. What was real? What had he missed? And in that moment, as the storm roared above and the ground trembled beneath his feet, all he could think was, what had he awakened? The blinding light engulfed the estate, a shockwave that seemed to freeze time. James squinted, feeling the pull of the past tighten like a vice around his chest. The world dimmed, shrouded in an ethereal glow as memories swirled chaotically. Then, something shifted in the air, and James could almost hear the whispers of secrets long buried. Thunder let out a scream, a high-pitched, keening sound that echoed through the wild weather. James's heart raced. He took a hesitant step forward, adrenaline coursing through him. But the ground felt unstable, as if it was heaving beneath the weight of a monument of truths too heavy to bear. "James!" Harold's voice broke through the golden haze. "You don't understand!" James's eyes widened. Every muscle in his body tightened. "Understand what?" he shouted, voice drowned by the storm. The light pulsed, and suddenly the air turned frigid. Out of nowhere, it struck him, a bone-chilling realization. This wasn't just a storm. It was a reckoning. Not just for him, but for all hidden beneath the surface. Like a snap of fate, James's world tilted as the shadows around him thickened. Then it changed. In an explosive clap of thunder, the realization struck. There, just out of the corner of his vision, was the silhouette of a woman. A familiar figure emerged from the swirling light, her face wreathed in luminosity, yet unmistakable. His mother. Alive and breathing. But that wasn't the true shock. No. It was the vision behind her. The figure lurking, cloaked and shadowed. Sent a jolt of electricity coursing through James. The backlight caught the features, and in that heartbeat, everything shifted. It was a man, the shape, the stance, like a twisted reflection of James himself, yet heavier, darker. "Father?" he whispered, the word barely escaping his lips. A memory surged, one he had carefully tucked away, but could never completely forget. The man who had vanished, leaving more questions than answers. The man whose legacy of pain had propelled James into his life of greed and arrogance. "James!" His mother's voice, wrapped in despair, cut through the haze of revelation. "You need to," but before she could finish, a wild bolt of electricity arced from Thunder, hitting the ground with a violent crack. Lightning split the air, illuminating the faces of James's friends, their shock mirroring his horror. They stumbled back, eyes wide, frozen in disbelief. "Get away from him!" Harold shouted, but the words fell flat, drowned by the chaos. James felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. "Father? How is this even possible?" Distress knotting in his chest. The man hadn't just faded into darkness. He had taken a piece of James's soul with him, leaving shadows that had never fully dissipated. The darkness surrounding the figure seemed to pulse and twist, a living thing, filled with eerie energy. A revelation writhed in James's stomach. This man hadn't just left, he had chosen to be lost. What kind of betrayal lay hidden in their past? Suddenly, the ground shuddered again, and with it, the dark figure surged forward, reaching toward James. "You must decide!" he roared, voice deep and echoing, tainted with the weight of years lived in shadows. With a sudden flash, light burst from the ground where thunder stood, expanding to envelop everything. James felt heat against his skin, a fierce pulse pushing against his chest, drowning out the chaos around him. Just as it felt like the truth could break free, the earth erupted. A blinding light swallowed the world whole, and James screamed as everything fractured into a million pieces, shattering the reality he had lived in. The storm choked the air, but it was the silence that followed that hung heavy, like the breath before a fall. What had he unleashed? What buried secrets now clawed to the surface? James stood there, heart hammering, filled with longing for clarity amidst the fog of confusion. Before him lay an uncertain path, one twisting deeper into darkness than he ever imagined. What truth awaited him when the light passed? What legacy did he truly inherit? A chilling thought gripped him. In seeking to change fate, had he unwittingly sealed his own? The thunder roared as the blinding light consumed everything in its path. James squeezed his eyes shut, feeling heat radiate around him like the surge before a thunderclap. His heart raced wildly, each beat ringing in his ears like warning drums. His past surged through him. Pain, anger, fear, each memory colliding with the next like debris caught in a storm. He felt a whisper of air brush against his face, cool and sharp. For a moment, time stood still. He opened his eyes, squinting against the glare, when suddenly a shadow lunged before him, tackling him to the ground. "James, get down!" Harold shouted, his voice slicing through the chaos. As they hit the ground together, the light exploded with a crack that rattled their very bones. James gasped, panicking, and looked up to see the figure of his father twisted in the air, face contorted, locked in a struggle against the brilliance. "Father!" James cried, uncertainty flooding his voice. "No, it's not what you think!" The roar came from the dark figure, who now seemed trapped between realms, battling to break free. It was a surreal image, like a nightmare come to life. But then it happened. The light condensed, swirling into a singular point above the ground. And in an instant, a shockwave blasted out, throwing everyone back. The world spun. James grasped at the grass, but his surroundings morphed, distant voices merging into a single cacophony. Confusion churned in his stomach as the blinding light began to pulse, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. It felt almost alive. And then, without warning, the light dimmed, revealing the chaotic scene anew. But something was off. His friends stumbled backward, faces pale, eyes wide as if staring at a ghost. The air thickened, carrying a scent of earth and something metallic. James rose to his feet, his breaths coming in sharp gasps. He turned to the center of the chaos where the strange energy had coalesced. In the place where the dark figure had been stood a woman, a figure from the depths of his memory. A chilling familiarity settled in. It was Marissa. But she was supposed to be gone, lost in a past that haunted him. "Like a shadow. James!" Her voice was raspy, but filled with a weight that made his heart tremble. "I've come to warn you." "Warn me?" His confusion bubble erupted into anger. The light flickered violently. Suddenly the ground heaved. An explosion of dirt and debris erupted from beneath, a massive fissure roaring open. James stumbled, struggling to keep his balance. The essence of past horrors tumbled forth, lost memories tumbling from the dark chasm. "James!" Marissa's voice echoed, filled with urgency. "You need to get out. The truth is down there, and it will destroy you." His mind raced. The truth? Destruction? What truth? Before Marissa could respond, the earth below cracked wide open, and from the depths emerged shadows, brands of dark energy spiraling towards the sky like fingers reaching out. Each shadow took form, familiar shapes that twisted his very being. Family, friends, the faces of pain and secrets he had, long buried. James felt the air escape his lungs as the nightmare unveiled itself. They were all trapped, echoes of a past that should have stayed buried. Wide-eyed, James glanced at Harold, who had fallen silent. Confusion etched in his features. He looked from Marissa to the shadows, then back to James. "James!" he shouted suddenly, urgency in his voice. "We have to go now." But it was too late. The shadows surged forward, a tide of darkness swallowing their world whole. James felt the ground beneath him quake, uncertainty morphing into dread. Everything he thought he knew, every particle of his identity, was at risk. With horror creeping into his heart, James grasped the truth that had always lingered just out of reach. If Marissa was alive, if this darkness was coming from within his own blood, then what did it mean for him? What had he awakened? And was there any way out of the shadows that now threatened to consume each beat like a drum, warning him that disaster was coming? Time slowed. He reached for Marissa, but the distance between them felt like an eternity. "Marissa, please don't go!" She opened her mouth to speak, but in that instant, the shadows coiled around her, pulling her further away. "You need to know the truth," she gasped, her eyes wide with terror. "Before it's too late, you're—" But the storm erupted with a violent crescendo. A blinding flash of light split the sky, illuminating the landscape in a harsh white glare. For a heartbeat, everything halted, straining against the oncoming chaos. And then darkness swallowed the light whole. A thunderclap resonated, shattering the silence. James braced himself, instinctively shielding his face with his arms. The ground quaked violently. He stumbled, lost his footing, and fell to the earth, bruising his knees on the cold ground. When he finally dared to look up, a figure emerged from the chaos. As the storm subsided, the shadows twisted and shrank back, forming a distinct silhouette. James's stomach dropped. There, standing where darkness had thrived a moment before, was a woman. A disheveled woman. Hair streamed across her face like shadows. Body pulsing with a desperate energy. "Mother?" he gasped, the word laced with disbelief. But it wasn't his mother. No, she was a stranger with his mother's face. Every feature echoed familiarity, a ghost from the past. Her eyes, those haunted eyes, filled with chaotic emotions, a blend of fear, anger, and heartbreak. "James," she exclaimed, voice trembling, "you must listen." "Who are you?" he demanded, a tremor in his throat. "What do you want? Why are you here?" But her gaze shifted beyond him, locking onto the dark figure that loomed just outside the light. "He was never supposed to find out," she whispered urgently, advancing toward James. "The darkness. It was meant to stay buried." James's mind reeled. What did she mean? The darkness? Suddenly, she lunged forward, her hands reaching for him, eyes frantic. "You have to break the cycle! If he gets you—" "Who?" he shouted, desperation clawing at him. "Who gets me?" A low laugh echoed, deep, malicious. The dark figure behind her stepped forward, revealing a face twisted with wicked intent. "Ah, so the boy finally knows," he sneered. Shock coursed through James. It was his father, but older, darker, etched with the weight of betrayals and dark secrets. "You've come home, son," the figure said, eyes blazing with malice. "No! Stay away from him!" Marissa cried, dread pooling in James's chest. "I am the darkness you're afraid of, James. Your birthright." The revelation hit him like a gut punch. Every doubt he'd ever wrestled with rising to the surface. His heart raced. The shadows had awakened, but his legs felt rooted to the ground. "James!" Harold screamed, but it wasn't enough to break through the cacophony in his mind. "Run!" And just as the figure stepped closer, a horrific laugh breaking free, the ground trembled violently once more. The sky turned crimson, and James felt the air shift, crackle. Everything trembled, secrets long buried, lies erupting to the surface. "Mother, please," he begged, tears stinging his eyes. "Tell me the truth. What's happening?" Her face tightened, resolve faltering. "You have to choose. This is your moment. Remember what was lost and what still lies ahead." But the wicked figure interrupted, an icy grip wrapping around James's heart. "You're mine, boy. You can't escape your legacy. Accept it." Then came an explosion. A brilliant flash erupted from where the shadows converged, stealing the breath from James's lungs. The earth split wide open, dark energy roaring into the air, enveloping everything in its path. And as the ground trembled beneath him, James caught a glimpse of his mother's terrified face, the last thing he saw before the darkness swallowed him whole. "How could she? What have I unleashed?" he breathed, panic gripping him tightly. In that moment, he understood that the storm had only just begun. The world darkened, swallowed by chaos. James gasped. The weight of the shadows pressing down on him. He felt pinched, tightness in his chest, breaths shallow. The flicker of light dimmed, leaving only grumbling echoes of thunder behind. Marissa stood frozen, eyes wide, locked in a gaze with the looming figure that wore his father's face. The truth felt like a heavy cloak, suffocating and cold. "James!" she shouted, urgency spilling from her lips. "You need to believe me." "Believe what?" James shouted back, voice shaking uncontrollably. "That he's back to steal me? Or that you knew?" Panic clawed at his insides, each heartbeat like a pounding drum. "He's not just your father," she began, but was cut off by a deafening crash. The shadows twisted, swelling like a tide, pulling her further away. "Stay back!" he screamed, the anguish tearing through his throat. He reached for her, but his fingers grasped only empty air. The darkness swirled around him, threatening to pull him under. "James, you need to know your legacy," Harold shouted, desperation etched across his features. The menacing shadows were drawing ever closer, prickling at James's skin. But the shadows stirred, a low growl emanating from them, jagged shapes emerging from the darkness. Faces he thought he'd married. Friends lost, family forgotten. Each one etched with pain and fear, their mouths moving, but James could hear no sound. Then the figure stepped closer, sinister and unsettling. "I've missed you, son. So much to teach you," it said, voice deep and tainted with malice. A horrifying chill crept through James as the undeniable recognition settled in. "Stop!" he cried. "You don't control me." But the figure advanced, relentless. Just when James thought he'd break, the unexpected happened. Marissa surged forward, a desperate leap that shocked him. "No, you can't!" she bellowed, light coiling around her like a shield. "Stay back! You have no idea what he can do." James tried to warn, but it was too late. With a radiant burst, Marissa spun, her energy flaring like the sun. A blinding light erupted, and in that moment, the very fabric of reality seemed to tremble. James shielded his eyes, heart racing. The light pulsed, swelling, pulling things toward it. Shadows split apart, wailing with fury as everything around him shifted. Then came a shocking revelation, a familiar gleam at the edges of the light. "Mother?" James whispered, breath hitching. But this was no mere vision. She was here. Her form flickered in and out, luminous and ethereal. "You shouldn't have come, James," she warned, voice echoing through the tempest. "How is this possible?" he cried, confusion flooding him. "Why now?" "I had to protect you," she said, sorrow etched into her features. "But the truth, it binds the family." "What truth? What do you mean?" he pressed, desperation spilling. But before she could respond, the shadows surged forward, enraged by her presence. A crack echoed, splitting the air around them. The ground shuddered, buckling beneath the chaos. "Marissa, step back!" Harold shouted, terror bleeding into his voice. The force gathered like a storm, lightning cracking through the shadows, and within that chaos, all at once, everything shifted. A scream pierced the air. James felt something being ripped from him, something deep and essential. The darkness erupted with a roar. A blinding flash lit up the sky. As the dust settled, everything froze. The shadows retreated, revealing Marissa and his mother standing side by side, their hands gently reaching out. But it was then that James felt the awful truth ripple through him, a hot rush that turned to ice in his veins. There, etched in the air, a name floated like smoke. Evelyn. "Your destiny," the dark figure hissed, a deep rumble echoing from its core. "She was never meant to protect you." The revelation hung heavy in the air. A betrayal like poison seeped through his veins. Evelyn? Who was Evelyn? An unsettling chill settled in his bones. "James!" Marissa cried, urgency crammed into every syllable. "Listen to me." But just then, darkness surged, a rush of cold air blasting outward, shattering everything in the vicinity. His heart raced. What had he set in motion? In that moment, he realized the answers lingered closer than he ever imagined. Thoughts spiraled. Was his entire existence simply a thread in the much larger tapestry of deceit? a strand woven into shadows. His world hung in the balance, the line between light and dark blurred. James felt raw, stripped bare of certainty. What was the truth he had awakened? And who really was Evelyn? As the echoes of thunder faded, James stood trembling, caught at the precipice of a reality he never asked for, grasping to make sense of it all. Would he ever understand the web woven by those he thought he knew? And would the storm that raged within ever truly cease? As the shadows pressed closer, wrapping around James like a cloak of despair, he felt a surge of emotion so raw it threatened to swallow him whole. The faces of the damned flickered before him, family, friends, all worn with sorrow. He took a step back, heart pounding, the air thick with dread. "What do you want from me?" The dark figure sneered, eyes dark and empty. "Your legacy, James. It's time you accepted it." His mother's form shivered beside him, an ethereal glow contrasting sharply with the encroaching darkness. "Don't listen to him!" she shouted, voice strained, filled with urgency. "He's trying to deceive you!" But even as she spoke, the shadows wove together, forming something new, something insidious. "You can't outrun your bloodline," the figure laughed, sounding almost gleeful. Suddenly, without warning, the ground beneath them trembled violently. The air was charged. Alive with an electric anticipation, James felt a tightness in his chest, like the entire world was holding its breath. "What's happening?" he gasped. Then, with a shattering crack, a fissure erupted at their feet. The violent rift split the ground, sucking in everything in its path, light and shadows alike. James staggered, clutching his head. "James!" Marissa screamed. The darkness ripped her from their midst, pulling her close to the crack. Her face twisted in terror, eyes pleading. "Help me!" But all sense fled. In that moment of panic, a flash, a bright, blinding surge of light surged up from the crack, illuminating the night. It was white-hot, brighter than anything he had ever seen. The shadows writhed in terror, dissipating before the radiance. "Get back!" Harold shouted, pushing James away as the light spiraled outward, swallowing everything. The rift grew wider, the pulse reverberating through the earth. Then everything changed. From the center of the blinding light emerged another figure. Tall, standing firm against the light. A silhouette came into focus. As the brightness faded, recognition ignited within James that struck him like lightning. "Evelyn?" His voice trembled, disbelief crashing over him. The woman before him smiled lightly, but it was the glimmer in her eyes, both familiar and foreign, that sent his mind reeling. "It's time to end this," she said, her voice soothing yet charged. A twisted revelation clutched at his throat. "What do you mean? You were never supposed to—" he fumbled. But she stepped forward, cutting him off. "James, listen to me. I am not who you think I am." "What?" His heart stopped. "What? But you're— The words stuck in his throat, a lump of confusion and hurt. "I'm a part of this family," she confessed, her voice steady, eyes locking onto his with all the intensity of a summer storm. "But I'm also the one who sealed your fate. You must trust me." And with that, a rumble rolled through the air. As if an unseen hand reshaped reality, the shadows recoiled, shifting into a vortex. A cacophony of whispers crashed over them, a chorus of lost souls, pleading, begging for release. "James," his mother yelled, "don't listen to her." "What did you do?" he shouted, struggling to process the words tumbling from Evelyn's lips. "I fractured the timeline," she said, slowly, as if confessing a long-hidden sin. "To protect you, but I can't hold it anymore." A crack of thunder boomed, shaking the ground as the shadows surged once more, angry and wild. James's stomach dropped. The very ground seemed to twist and pull beneath him. Before he could register the chaos, Evelyn cried out, hands outstretched, connecting with the light that still hummed with energy. "I can end this," she promised, voice rising above the maelstrom. "Don't!" his mother screamed, horror painted across her face. "Evelyn, you don't know what you're—" But the moment hung heavy, suspended in the air. James trembled, caught in a tide of emotions, fear, heartache, confusion. "Evelyn, wait!" he shouted, reaching for her, desperation clawing at his throat. But it was too late. With a blinding flash, she pulled the light into herself, energy surging outward, swallowing the shadows whole. For a fraction of a second, everything fell silent. The ground ceased to shake. The storm pulled back. And then, a sound that shook the very heavens erupted. A blast that shattered barriers of reality, a swirling, colorless void. As James shielded his eyes, he felt his heart race. Would this be his end, or a new beginning? Then, in that flash of light, something emerged. A new form. A silhouette that felt all too familiar, yet somehow changed. With every heartbeat, the question emerged more clearly. Who had Evelyn really become? What was she unleashing upon them all? And what would it mean for everyone left standing in the storm? The storm cracked open the sky. With a blinding light, freezing time and space in an electric moment, James felt the air ripple with power, a charge that thrummed against his skin. He stood, heart pounding, caught between the flickering shadows and the overwhelming glare. There Evelyn and his mother confronted the darkness. Then, like a heartbeat, the brightness exploded inward. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, but it wasn't just the shadows screaming. James's very essence echoed with their terror. The rift in the earth pulsed, sucking at the light, struggling to reclaim its hold. "James!" Flames of light swirling around her, an incandescent halo of life. It was mesmerizing, yet terrifying. "Please, James, trust me," she urged, desperation charging her voice. "You must embrace your truth." "Truth?" James shouted, trying to maintain his ground against the rising storm of emotions. "What truth?" Then it happened. Everything shattered at once. A surge of darkness leapt forward, engulfing Evelyn. The brilliant light flickered and then snuffed out like a candle in the wind. James gasped as a shadow swallowed her whole, and then it began to change, twisting and contorting into a form of torment. No longer a figure of light, Evelyn emerged, but she was different now. Her eyes were now pools of darkness, her face painted with the agony of betrayal. It wasn't just her body that changed, it was her essence. James, she said, voice deep and gravelly, you have no idea what you've unleashed. Stunned, he stumbled back. The others around them gasped, their expressions reflecting terror and disbelief. What do you mean? James whispered, but the words felt heavy, too difficult to voice. She glided towards him, a smile that felt like a cruel joke twisting on her lips. No more lies, James. Your legacy has always been mine. I was always meant to lead you to this moment, to unlock the darkness. Your heritage flows through me, through us both. What? The word tore from his throat. The shock of realization crashed against him like waves. You were part of this all along. Yes, she hissed, venom weaving through her words. While you played the fool, I waited in the shadows. Your father sought to bury the truth, but I have risen. We were meant to harness this power together. No, he snapped, shaking his head, trying to deny her. All the threads of trust he'd woven into their relationship unraveled in front of him. But it's not only darkness, James. Her eyes glittered with something different now, something terrifying. You're stronger than you know. Your father's power flickers inside you, and I will help you control it. No, the words broke loose from his lips. You're lying. Thunder rumbled ominously. Behind them, the earth beneath their feet trembling. Lying? Evelyn echoed, confidence bubbling in her voice. You think everything is a game, but this is reality. Embrace it, and we can wield it together. Beside him, his mother gasped, face tormented. Evelyn, if you bind him... But Evelyn waved her hand, cutting off the argument. This is his path now. You can't shield him from destiny. James felt the ground shifting beneath him, gravity changing as the shadows thickened. Everything he thought he understood about his life and legacy teetered on a ledge of horrifying uncertainty. No, I don't want this, he shouted, panic rising inside him. And just as he stood there, trembling, the storm gathered strength. A howl ripping through the air. In that moment, the world collapsed into chaos. The shadows surged, fury unleashed, and a reality-bending truth became all too clear. The darkness wasn't just a threat. It was his own blood calling back, an echo of legacy he couldn't ignore. For everything he believed began to unravel, leaving James standing at the center of a storm with no clear way out. Whispers of betrayal hung heavy in the air, and dread twisted in his gut. How much of this was his own making? What consequences loomed ahead? And as he looked into Evelyn's transformed face, the question loomed larger than the storm itself. Could he ever escape the shadows that were part of him? James stood frozen, the weight of Evelyn's words pressing down like a storm cloud ready to burst. Her laughter echoed rich with darkness, wrapping around his heart. Shadows danced behind her, twisting like serpents, and he could feel their anxiety rising like a tide. Accept it, James, she pressed, her eyes reflecting a sinister glow. Your father's power flows through us both. We could be unstoppable. No, he shouted, hands trembling. I'll never join you. You've twisted everything. Beside him, his mother's expression twisted in horror. Evelyn, this isn't who you are. You don't know what you'll unleash. But Evelyn's laughter only deepened, a cruel melody swirling in the growing tempest. Oh, but I do know. I've always known. And now, it's time for you to see. Suddenly, the air thickened. It became electric. James felt it. A pull, an awakening deep inside him. The pulse of his father's darkness stirred, and fear lanced through him. "Let me show you," Evelyn said, voice sultry and dangerous. She raised her hands, summoning the shadows forward, like an army ready for war. They surged, coiling around her and reaching out toward James. But just then, an unexpected silence enveloped them, like a breath held in anticipation. And then it happened. A colossal crack rang out, splitting the air. The ground beneath them trembled violently. The shadows screamed, twisting in pain as a red light erupted from the rift in the earth. It was blinding, different from anything James had seen before, ripping through darkness like a knife through fog. "No! No! No!" Evelyn screamed, her confident demeanor faltering, her face twisted in disbelief. She stumbled back, pulling the shadows away, but they resisted, howling like banshees. James felt the energy shift, the air around him buzzing with a wild intensity. "What is that?" he gasped, shock coursing through him. Then, like a burst of lightning, the light coalesced into a figure, a woman. Her face emerged from the blaze, familiar yet strange. There she was, his sister. The sister he thought had vanished, lost to betrayal and secrets. "Megan?" James breathed, his heart pounding against his ribs. She looked older, her eyes holding the wisdom of lost years. "James!" she shouted, voice cutting through the chaos. "You have to stop her!" Evelyn recoiled, terror etched across her features. "You shouldn't be here!" But Megan pressed on, light swirling around her like a protective shield. "You have to believe me, James. She deceived us both. The darkness, it's a trick, a trap." James felt his breath catch. He'd sensed something deeper in Evelyn's claims. But this was a revelation that shattered everything. "No!" Evelyn screeched, the shadows thrashing violently around her. "You don't know what you're doing! You're weak!" "James!" Megan called again, urgency gripping her words. "It's not just your father's legacy. It's a cycle. We must break it, or it will consume us all." Pain ripped through James, tightness in his throat. "Why didn't you tell me? You were supposed to be dead." "I did what I had to do, James," Megan replied fiercely. "Evelyn is using you to fulfill a legacy of darkness, one that threatens everything." A guttural roar erupted from Evelyn, fierce and menacing. Shadows swarmed around her, like a storm ready to unleash its fury. "You can't escape your fate." "Enough!" James screamed, a fire igniting within him. The truth blazed brighter than the storm above them. He recalled the pain, the memories of family lost in shadows, and the betrayal weaving through their lives. As if feeding off his determination, the light around him intensified. "I choose my path," he declared, eyes blazing with conviction. In that moment, everything changed. The ground shook again, rending the fabric of reality. Shadows writhed, clawing at their feet, struggling against the power surging within James. And just like that, all was silence. The world held its breath. Would they emerge from the shadows, or be consumed by the very legacy they sought to escape? Megan reached out, her hand trembling. "James, trust yourself." But then, with a deafening crack, a massive fissure opened beneath them. The darkness surged up, roaring like a hungry beast. James's heart raced as he stared into the depths of despair. What awaited them below? Would he find the answers he sought, or something far worse. And in that split second, before everything shattered, he wondered, could he break the cycle, or would he be lost forever in the storm? As the earth split beneath them, James felt a surge of raw energy shoot through him. The shadows writhed, furious at the emergence of their adversaries. Evelyn's plan crumbled, her face twisted with rage and disbelief. "You think you can defy me?" she hissed, eyes alight with a manic fire. "I don't think I know!" James shouted back, his voice ringing with newfound strength. He turned to Megan beside him, their eyes locking. "We're stronger together." The shadows screamed, a deafening cacophony intertwining with the storm. "Together, you're bound to repeat the same mistakes," Evelyn spat, flinging her arms wide as if to command the darkness itself. Megan clenched her fists, light radiating from her form. "No more lies. We can break this cycle." Her voice pierced through the chaos, infusing him with determination. Hand in hand, they faced the gathering storm. James felt the power within him. His father's darkness, yes, but it was his choice to not let it define him. "We don't have to accept this destiny," he declared, heart pounding, fueled by every injustice that had ever haunted them. The shadows surged again, but this time they were met with a blast of light as James and Megan released their powers in unison, blotting out the darkness. Everything shook. The sky split open with a thunderous roar. Evelyn stumbled back, furious, shocked. "You cannot abandon your heritage. You belong to the darkness." James's heart raced as he stood firm, confidence exploding within him. "No! Our legacy is ours to define." They pressed forward, the light intensifying, forcing the shadows to retreat. With a final, furious screech, the shadows imploded, a whirlpool of darkness collapsing in on itself. The fissure began to seal, the air shimmering with a brilliant light. James turned to his mother, who met his gaze, pride shining through her fear. "You did it, James," she breathed, tears glistening in her eyes. For the first time in so long, he felt a sense of closure, a connection restored in their frayed family tapestry. Megan smiled softly, though her expression remained serious. "It's not over. We must stay vigilant." "Yes," James agreed, glancing back at the now quiet rift. "But we'll do it together." As the shadows dissipated, so did the storm clouds, revealing a radiant sky above them, bathed in golden light. Hope blossomed, warming their hearts, as if the universe itself breathed a sigh of relief. But just as they began to feel the weight lift, a distant rumble echoed in the grounds of the estate. James turned swiftly, anxiety creeping in. What now? Megan straightened, her eyes narrowing. "It's not finished." James exchanged a glance with his mother, dread pooling in his stomach. "No, it can't be!" But just as they braced for the unknown, he felt a flicker, the remnants of darkness whispering from beyond. Perhaps it was a story still unfolding, a legacy redefined but never fully erased. With newfound resolve, he took a deep breath. Whatever comes next, we face it together. In that moment, their future seemed uncertain, yet full of potential. And as the sun began to set, painting the horizon in bold hues, they understood the journey had just begun. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for our channel. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. Don't wait another second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. If you like stories about farmers, about everyday life on the farm, and want to know what really happens in the daily lives of the biggest farmers in the world, the hidden stories of the richest owners, and the secrets of the farm girls that the media doesn't reveal, check out our virtual book with the most famous and secret stories from the farm. Click on the first link in the video comments and get yours now.